Ice age.
Ice age.
Iceberg.
Iceberg.
Iceberg lettuce.
Iceberg lettuce.
Ice blue.
Ice blue.
His ice blue eyes. Icebound.
Icebound.
Icebox.
Icebox.
Icebreaker.
Icebreaker.
This game is an effective icebreaker at the beginning of a semester.
Ice bucket.
Ice bucket.
Ice cap.
Ice cap.
Ice cold.
Ice cold.
Ice cold drinks.
Ice cream.
Ice cream.
Vanilla ice cream.
Mummy, can I have an ice cream? Ice cream cone.
Ice cream cone.
Ice cream parlour.
Ice cream parlour.
Ice cream soda.
Ice cream soda.
Ice cube.
Ice cube. Iced. Iced.
Iced water.
Iced tea.
Iced coffee.
Ice fishing.
Ice fishing.
Ice flow.
Ice flow.
Ice hockey.
Ice hockey.
Ice lolly.
Ice lolly.
Iceman.
Iceman.
ICE number.
ICE number.
Ice pack.
Ice pack.
Ice pick.
Ice pick.
Ice rink.
Ice rink.
Ice sheet.
Ice sheet.
Ice skate.
Ice skate.
Ice skate.
Ice skate.
Ice water.
Ice water.
Ischen.
Isen. A beautician.
A technician.
Icicle.
Icicle.
Icide. Icide. Insecticide. Suicide. Icily.
Icily.
I want you to leave now, she said icily. Icing.
Icing.
It was a great day, but meeting her there was just the icing on the cake.
Icing.
Icing sugar.
Icing sugar.
Icky.
Icky.
There was some icky black stuff between the tiles.
Icon.
Icon.
To open a new file, click on the icon.
A 60s cultural icon.
Iconoclast.
Iconoclast.
Iconoclastic.
Iconoclastic.
Wolf's theories were revolutionary and iconoclastic.
Iconography.
Iconography.
Native American iconography.
Ix. Ix.
Linguistics. Electronics.
Athletics.
Acrobatics.
The acoustics of the hall.
ICT.
ICT.
ICU.
ICU.
Icy.
Icy.
An icy wind. The bath water was icy cold.
An icy mountain road.
An icy stair.
ID.
ID.
I'll need to see some ID.
A fake ID. Police are still looking for someone who can ID the body.
Id.
I'd.
I'd.
I wish I'd said that.
I'd leave now if I were you.
ID card.
ID card.
Idea.
Idea.
You should talk to Ken. He's always full of good ideas.
I knew it was a bad idea to leave him on his own.
It was my wife's idea to move house.
The idea for the book came from an old war movie. The idea for the book came from an old war movie.
I had the idea of asking Katie for help.
Could you give me an idea of how bad his injuries are? You must have some idea of what happened to the money.
Don't worry if you don't understand it right now. You'll get the idea.
She doesn't have any idea where they've gone.
Can you give me a rough idea of how much the repairs will cost?
I don't have the faintest idea what to get Rachel for her birthday.
The idea is to teach children to save money. The idea behind the outing is to encourage employees to get to know each other.
They wanted Mike to go to law school, but he had other ideas.
Chefs differ in their idea of what makes a good dessert. I only have a vague idea of the kind of work I'll be doing.
It helps if you have a clear idea of what you want.
Chocolate milk and a piece of cake is not my idea of dinner. The very idea of kissing him made her feel physically sick.
She had some rather unusual ideas about raising children.
No, I'm not seeing Jane. Where did you get that idea?
The whole idea of democracy was something strange and new to most people.
It's based on the idea that all people are created equal.
I'm not sure where my necklace is, but I have a pretty good idea who took it.
Don't get the wrong idea about Dan and Helen. They're just friends.
He still makes a few mistakes, but I reckon he's got the right idea. Why don't you invite Paula to come with us? There's an idea. Keep your knees bent and lean forward slightly. That's the idea. You're thinking of getting a new job? Yeah, that's the idea. Whose bright idea was it to leave the back door wide open? Nick tells me he wants a motorbike. Have you been putting ideas into his head?
She wants you to do it by tomorrow. Is that your idea of a joke?
You have no idea how worried I was.
Ideal.
Ideal.
Advice on how to reach your ideal weight.
The scheme offers an ideal opportunity for youngsters to get training.
With so much rain, conditions are far from ideal.
An elastic waist makes these jeans ideal for the larger woman.
An ideal place for a walk.
In an ideal world, there would be no need for a police force.
The ideal of a free and democratic society.
The long-vanished ideals of the 1950s.
Are our ideals of beauty changing?
Idealize.
Idealize.
Idealism.
Idealism.
The idealism of the younger generation. Religious idealism.
Idealist.
Idealist.
Idealistic.
Idealistic.
Idealistic young doctors.
The idealistic values of the 1960s.
Idealize.
Idealize.
Society continues to idealize the two-parent family.
An idealized view of marriage.
Society continues to idealize the two-parent family.
An idealized view of marriage.
Ideally.
Ideally.
Ideally, your car should have high security locks.
Fruit and vegetables should ideally be organically grown.
He was ideally suited for the job.
The hotel is ideally located for enjoying the beauty of Yorkshire.
Idem.
Idem.
Ident. Ident. TV idents.
Identical.
Identical.
4 identical houses. Nutritionally, infant formulas are almost identical to breast milk.
The ingredients are identical with those of competing products. The sisters were identical in appearance and character.
Identical twin.
Identical twin.
Identifiable.
Identifiable.
She looked young and was immediately identifiable as a trainee.
The police were identifiable by their uniform.
Identification.
Identification.
Do you have any identification? Bring some form of identification, preferably a passport.
Fingerprinting as a means of identification.
His body was taken to Brighton mortuary for identification.
The identification of customer needs.
The identification of children who need professional help.
The identification of sexism with women's oppression.
My identification with the heroine of the book.
Identification parade.
Identification parade.
Identify.
Identify.
He was too far away to be able to identify faces.
The police took fingerprints and identified the body. Eyewitnesses identified the gunman as an army sergeant.
The aircraft were identified as American. The aircraft were identified as American.
Scientists have identified the gene that causes abnormal growth. Scientists have identified the gene that causes abnormal growth.
They identified a number of problem areas.
His accent identified him as a Frenchman.
Humans can easily identify with the emotional expressions of chimpanzees.
He identified with our distress. He identified with our distress.
She has always been identified with the radical left.
The attempt to identify crime with poverty and social problems.
Identity card.
Identity card.
Identity parade.
Identity parade.
Identity theft. Identity theft.
Ideogram.
Ideogram.
Ideological.
Ideological. The party is split by ideological differences.
Ideologue.
Ideologue.
Ideology.
Ideology.
The ideologies of fascism and communism.
A new ideology based on individualism.
The Ides of March.
Ides of March.
Idiocy.
Idiocy.
The idiocy of his behaviour appalled her.
He smiled calmly at the idiocies of mankind.
Idiolect.
Idiolect.
Idiom.
Idiom.
The new musical idiom.
Idiosyncrasy.
Idiosyncrasy.
My uncle's idiosyncrasies.
One of the many idiosyncrasies of English spelling.
Idiot.
Idiot.
It was all your fault, you idiot.
Stop asking such idiotic questions.
Idiot-proof.
Idiot-proof.
Idiot-proof instructions.
Idle.
Idle.
I cannot afford to leave the land lying idle.
The whole team stood idle, waiting for the mechanic. The workers have been idle for the last 6 months.
She was not a woman to make idle threats.
It was only from idle curiosity that she went into the barn.
Go and wake up that idle brother of yours.
It would be idle to deny that progress was made. They sat chatting idly.
I cannot stand idly by and let him take the blame.
He flicked a switch and let the boat idle. He flicked a switch and let the boat idle.
Sometimes he went for a walk. Sometimes he just idled.
The company has idled a number of its US plants indefinitely.
They idled their time away in the pub.
Idler.
Idler.
Idle.
Idle.
She is the idol of countless teenagers.
She had made an idol of her husband.
A pop idol.
Idolatry.
Idolatry.
Idolize.
Idolize.
They had one child, a girl whom they idolized.
Idyll.
Idle.
A rural idyll. Idyllic.
Idyllic.
If you want old world tradition in an idyllic setting, this is the hotel for you. Idyllically happy.
E.
E.
Dearie.
I.e.
I.e.
The film is only open to adults, i.e. people over 18.
IED. IED.
IELTS.
IELTS.
If.
If. We'll stay at home if it rains.
If you need money, I can lend you some.
If I didn't apologize, I'd feel guilty.
If you had worked harder, you would have passed your exams.
What would happen to your family if you were to die in an accident?
If Dad were here, he would know what to do.
Taste the soup and add salt and pepper if necessary. I want to get back by 5 o'clock if possible.
I think I can fix it tomorrow. If not, you'll have to wait till Friday.
Is the book available, and if so, where?
The missiles can be fired only if the operator types in a 6-digit code.
We'll face that problem if and when it comes along. If by any chance you can't manage dinner tonight, perhaps we can at least have a drink together.
He stopped to ask me if I was all right.
I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense.
I doubt if anyone will remember me.
I'm not sure if this is the right road or not.
If I go to bed late, I feel dreadful in the morning.
Plastic will melt if it gets too hot.
You don't seem to care if I'm tired. You don't seem to care if I'm tired.
I'm sorry if I upset you.
It would be nice if we could spend more time together.
I wonder if you could help me.
I'd be grateful if you would send me further details. I'd be grateful if you would send me further details.
Would you mind if I open a window?
If you would just wait for a moment, I'll try to find your papers.
Brian rarely, if ever, goes to bed before 3 a.m. Their policies have changed little, if at all, since the last election.
Her needs are just as important as yours, if not more so. Her needs are just as important as yours, if not more so.
The snow was now 2 feet deep, making it difficult, if not impossible, to get the car out. I wouldn't tell you even if I knew.
Even if she survives, she'll never fully recover.
It's warm enough here in London. A little too warm, if anything.
If I might just make a suggestion, I think that the matter could be easily settled with a little practical demonstration.
If I could just take one example to illustrate this.
I wouldn't worry about it if I were you.
If only he had talked to her sooner.
If only I weren't so tired.
Media studies is regarded as a more exciting subject, if only because it's new.
If he has a fault at all, it is that he is too generous.
Her only problem, if you can call it a problem, is that she expects to be successful all the time.
The eldest son was highly intelligent, if somewhat lazy.
Lunch was a grand if rather noisy affair. Lunch was a grand if rather noisy affair.
No ifs and buts, just make sure the job is done by tomorrow.
The team will go racing next year if, and it's a very big if, they can raise £6 million.
There are too many ifs in this plan of yours.
Iffy. Iffy.
That meat smells a bit iffy to me.
The July date is still rather iffy. The July date is still rather iffy.
Iform.
Iform.
Cruciform.
If I.
If I.
To purify.
To clarify the situation.
Spiders terrify me.
To speechify.
Frenchified.
Igloo. Igloo.
Igneous.
Igneous.
Ignite.
Ignite.
The petrol tank suddenly ignited.
The candle ignited the plastic.
Events which ignited the war in Europe.
Ignition.
Ignition.
Ignoble.
Ignoble.
Ignoble feelings of intense jealousy.
Ignominious.
He feared the ignominy of being exposed as a spy.
Ignoramus.
Ignoramus.
Ignorance.
Ignorance.
Excuse my ignorance, but how does it actually work?
Our ignorance of the true situation.
I would have remained in ignorance if Sean hadn't mentioned it. I would have remained in ignorance if Sean hadn't mentioned it. Public fear and ignorance about AIDS.
Ignorant.
Ignorant.
An ignorant and uneducated man. Political historians are often rather ignorant of economics. Political historians are often rather ignorant of economics.
Many people remain blissfully ignorant about the dangers of too much sun.
An ignorant remark. Ignorant opinions.
Ignorant behaviour.
Ignore.
Ignore.
You can't ignore the fact that many criminals never go to prison.
Problems which we can't afford to ignore.
The phone rang, but she ignored it.
Sam rudely ignored the question. He had completely ignored her remark, preferring his own theory.
Iguana.
Iguana.
Icon.
Icon.
Ill.
Ill.
Illogical.
Ilk.
Ilk.
Irving Berlin and composers of his ilk.
Mrs. Taylor and her ilk talk absolute rubbish.
Ill.
Ill.
Bridget can't come, she's ill. Bridget can't come, she's ill. I was feeling ill that day and decided to stay at home. Her husband has been ill with bladder trouble. A hospice for the terminally ill.
Many people consumed the poisoned oil without ill effects.
A hospice for the terminally ill.
Many people consumed the poisoned oil without ill effects. The neglect and ill treatment of children.
He was unable to join the army because of ill health. He always felt shy and ill at ease at parties.
I was losing weight which I could ill afford to lose. Most gamblers can ill afford their habit.
She really believes you should never speak ill of the dead.
The look on his face boded ill for somebody.
He wants to cure all the ills of the world.
She did not like Matthew, but she would never wish him ill.
Ill. Ill. Ill-concealed boredom.
Ill-formed sentences.
I'll.
I'll.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Ill-advised.
Ill-advised.
You would be ill-advised to go out alone at night. Ill-advised remarks.
Ill-assorted. Ill-bred.
Ill-bred.
Ill-conceived.
Ill-conceived. The policy was ill-conceived and misguided.
Ill-considered.
Ill-considered.
The tax reforms are ill-considered.
Ill-defined.
Ill-defined.
Some jobs in the company are pretty ill-defined. The borders were vague and ill-defined.
Ill-disposed.
Ill-disposed.
An ill-disposed character.
Illegal.
Illegal.
Illegal drugs.
They were involved in illegal activities.
It is illegal to sell tobacco to someone under 16.
They entered the country illegally.
Illegals are still slipping through in unacceptable numbers.